Okay.
Live on YouTube.
So, good afternoon to all those who have joined us from various parts of India, and good morning and good evening to all those who have joined us from other parts of the world. And a warm welcome to you on the 16th lecture of the GYAN lecture series, celebrating the 50th year of establishment of the University Department of Physics. Today we have with us Dr. Anjali Subburaj, who will be speaking on her journey from Mumbai to Mars. But before we begin the program, let's listen to the university song as is our tradition.
सुन्दरं मन्दिरं शारदाया मुम्बापुरी विश्वविद्यालयम् इदं सुन्दरं मन्दिरं शारदाया मुम्बापुरी विश्वविद्यालयम् कलाशास्त्रवाणिज्यशाखा विरूढा अमूढा विमुक्ता विहङ्गा वयम् शृण्वन्तु सर्वे दृढं निश्चयम् शृण्वन्तु सर्वे दृढं निश्चयम् इदं सुन्दरं मन्दिरं शारदाया मुम्बापुरी विश्वविद्यालयम् सत्यं वदामो धर्मं चरामो नयामो नृणा दुःखभारं लयम् सत्यं वदामो धर्मं चरामो नयामो नृणा दुःखभारं लयम् स्वधाये रतानां सदा जागृतानां भवेत् किं भविष्येति तस्मात् भयम् शृण्वन्तु सर्वे दृढं निश्चयम् शृण्वन्तु सर्वे दृढं निश्चयम् इदं सुन्दरं मन्दिरं शारदाया मुम्बापुरी विश्वविद्यालयम् युवा स्यात् बलिष्ठो युवा स्यात् गरिष्ठो युवा ध्येयनिष्ठो विभूयाद्वयम् युवा स्यात् बलिष्ठो युवा स्यात् गरिष्ठो युवा ध्येयनिष्ठो विभूयाद्वयम् यदि स्यात् युवा राष्ट्रकर्तव्यनिष्ठा समानेतत्त्वं विलोकत्रयम् शृण्वन्तु सर्वे दृढं निश्चयम् शृण्वन्तु सर्वे दृढं निश्चयम् इदं सुन्दरं मन्दिरं शारदाया मुम्बापुरी विश्वविद्यालयम् वन्दामहे भारतं पूजनीयं स्वदेशात् परं नास्ति देवालयम् वन्दामहे भारतं पूजनीयं स्वदेशात् परं नास्ति देवालयम्
welcome back. And now I'll request our head of the department, Professor Anuradha Mishra, to say a few words. And we have very special people here today, Professor Tarun Kant and Dr. Dahiya. We'd also like them to say a few words to us. But Madam, over to you first to say a few words on this occasion.
Yeah. Uh, Respected Professor Tarun Kant, Professor Dahiya, uh, our esteemed speaker of the day, Dr. Anjali, and all the respected guests from the university and other places. I welcome you all to this 16th session of GYAN lecture series. As most of you are aware, the series has been going very well, and we have been able to connect to a number of alumni in this period, and some of them have given wonderful talks, and we have come to see how many different dimensions our students have taken after their education in the department. And we have one more completely different story this time of Dr. Anjali, who started as a physics student and did her PhD in plasma physics, and then we'll hear from her directly today how she has ended up as a very successful IT and business person in UK. So I welcome Dr. Anjali, and I also request Professor Tarun Kant to say a few words. I have been trying to uh, I have been hoping that Professor Tarun Kant will join us in one of the sessions, and one or two times he joined also, but unfortunately he lost the connection. So today I see he has a good connection. So I'll request Rishika to kindly invite him to say a few words of
Yes,
encouragement.
sure.
Welcome, sir.
Professor Kant, please, can you say a few words to us?
Thank you very much. No, I have been seeing your program off and on, and this is a great effort that you have all put in, and these programs are going very well. I think the series is really a very successful one, and I'm happy that you have been able to rope in so many of your alumni to talk and I mean we also come to know that what they are doing. So I wish you all the best, and I think please continue with your program. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Dr. Dahiya is also here. Sir, can you hear me?
Yeah. Good afternoon. I already spoken, madam. I already said a few words. So thank you very much thank you very much for inviting me to speak few words again. I'm very pleased that this GYAN series is going on for some time, and I've been following it. I've been receiving a regular email from your department. I was a member of BOG when Dr. Anil Kakodkar was the chairman of BOG. I was very fortunate to be from the BOG at this time. Department had got the autonomous status. So very good that you are having a really very advanced lectures in this GYAN series. And today I was very impressed that Dr. Anjali, who started from this department and now has gone up to the studies on Mars. Up to Mars, she will be talking on. Of course, now I think she is software. I read about a brief sketch which you circulated on that. Madam HOD was madam at that time also when I was member BOG. Again, she is HOD. And so this is a very good department. I'm really very impressed. I've been following this department since long. As I said today, this afternoon, a few minutes ago, I had a friend here long ago who is retired, Dr. Vaman Kulkarni. Professor, he retired as professor, I think, from the department. We started from PRL, Ahmedabad, Physical Research Laboratory, student type, and then so I have been very much aware of the department since those days. It was in, I think, late 70s or so. He came perhaps late 70s or early 80s. So thanks for giving me the time, and I wish all the best to all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Dahiya, and thank you, Professor Kant, for your kind words, and thank you, Professor Mishra, also. So now it is my pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Dr. Anjali Subburaj. She is Digital Commerce Chief Architect at Mars, United Kingdom, and she earned her doctorate in physics and became a researcher and lecturer in physics at University of Mumbai before emigrating to UK in 1999. After changing career and starting in an IT support role, she learned to code, became a consultant, progressing towards architecting and leading digital transformations for enterprise organizations from various industry sectors. Anjali then moved to Salesforce, where she gained expertise in cloud architecture and achieved the coveted Salesforce Certified Technical Architect status. Dedicated to her continuous professional development, Anjali then joined Mars, where she applies her extensive knowledge and expertise as an architect to lead the strategic technology initiatives in the domain of digital commerce. As a technology leader who has architected and delivered multi-million pound digital transformation projects, Anjali believes in opening up the channels of communication between IT and business in order to foster a culture of change that supports agility. She also champions removal of unconscious biases to establish true diversity. Anjali recently won UK's prestigious Technology Hero of the Year 2020 award set up by the Computing magazine. So we have here today Dr. Anjali Subburaj talking about her journey from Mumbai to Mars. So it's over to you, Dr. Anjali.
Thank you, Ritvika. Thank you very much for the kind introduction. Let me share my screen. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, Dr. Anuradha, faculty members of University Department of Physics, my eminent professors and friends. It is my great pleasure and honor to be invited to speak at the Golden Jubilee celebrations of the Department of Physics of University of Mumbai, which is my alma mater. I acquired my MSc degree followed by my doctorate degree from this department several years ago. Since then, never in my wildest dreams did I imagine that one day I would return, although it's virtual, to address the youngest generation of postgraduate students of this department. Hence, this is really a rare privilege. And to be honest, I still think that it's not real. So thank you very much for inviting me. A little story behind the genesis of the title of my talk. So I joined Mars early this year during the lockdown itself. So I haven't been with Mars for long. And a couple of months after joining, in the context of work, I was making inquiries over the phone with some external companies. And during one such phone call, a lady picked up the phone at the other end, and I said, "Hello, my name is Anjali, and I'm calling from Mars." She said, "Excuse me?" I said slowly and clearly, "My name is Anjali, and I'm calling from Mars." She replied, "What are you talking about?" For a few seconds, I was dumbstruck as I could not figure out what is it that she does not understand. I've just said two simple sentences. And then suddenly a light bulb went off, and I said, "I'm so sorry. I'm calling from a company called Mars." And then the dialogue continued. But I found that initial dialogue quite amusing, as I can omit a couple of words, and then I can be on Mars instead of Mother Earth. So that is the genesis of the title of my talk, my journey from Mumbai to Mars. So what am I going to talk about today? Building a successful professional career in any area is usually a very complex process. It depends on several factors, such as your education, your experience, your personal circumstances, the external circumstances, the opportunities that are available to you, and of course, the challenges that you face. that shape the path that you tread. Yet the overriding factor that defines success and leads you through your journey to your destination is your own self. Hence, I would like to talk to you about my career progression, as that is the only career path that I know about, as it is unique to everyone. I would also like to briefly describe my current area of focus at work, what I do on a day-to-day basis, and then talk about some of my greatest discoveries during the journey. I would like to end with a Q&A. So my career started here at UDP, University of Mumbai, when I did my MSc and registered for PhD at the University Department of Physics. I registered for experimental physics because I didn't really like theoretical physics. I was a person who wanted to see things happen, make things happen. That was my belief that I could do that better with experimental physics. We didn't have many resources those days. We didn't have computers, and the UDP was a humble place relatively, with the lack of facilities, etc. So I had to run around quite a bit, go to BARC, beg to other institutes to get some funding, some equipment, so I could carry on with my experimental physics, research in experimental physics. However, towards the end of my doctorate degree, I had collected a lot of data and I didn't know how to analyze it. So that was the point at which my husband Subbu, he introduced me to computers. And that was my initiation into computing, where I could take that data and within minutes input into computer, and within minutes it would do the analysis that I wanted to do. So that was the beginning of my relationship with computing. After finishing my PhD, I did some teaching assignments in various colleges and institutes. I was trying to be a researcher, but to be honest, nothing really worked out in the area of teaching and research for me. So I had already got exposure to computing, so I continued to build upon that in my own private as my own private hobby, and I moved into scientific computing projects. So I was doing small projects on a part-time basis, but scientific computing didn't really have much commercial, how to say it, buy-in. So I didn't have much scope to continue in scientific computing. I tried to get a job in commercial computing in Mumbai, but I think funnily enough, in one place I was told that I'm too old to start a career in computing. So it was back to home and trying to figure out what do I do next. And then in 1999, my husband Subbu got transferred from his company to UK, London, and I arrived in London with my husband Subbu and my son, who was quite young then, Karthik, to start a new life. Now, when I arrived in UK, I had already sort of stepped out of physics, and it is not easy to start a career in UK. Physics is not very popular subject here. And I didn't have much computing experience either. So I was a little bit at a loss about what should I do. And it was just being resilient, making phone calls, going for phone interviews. And I got a job as a support analyst in a startup company. And that company went bust. It was a .com company, went bust. But they offered me a job to answer customer questions and log them in the computer, the basic computer support analyst job. And that was fine. So I took up that job. I started from there. But then I kept learning how to develop, take interest in software development, learn from others. So then I became a software developer. While doing software development, I learned project management. I learned how to lead a team of developers, etc. So that means that I could move from just being a developer, I became a technical team lead. And from then on, I became a technical project manager by acquiring certifications in relevant area. So that was if you look at any computing career, you would find that the starting point could be different. Somebody could start as a developer or a project manager, but usually these are the steps that you have to go through if you have to build career in commercial computing. I had changed jobs, so though I was doing these roles, they were not in the same company. They were in different companies. So at this point, then I was working with small to medium-sized companies, but wow, I've always been ambitious, as I think Professor Nasai said. I've always been wanting to do something more. So I wanted to move into bigger companies, get exposure to bigger enterprise programs and so on. So from small to medium companies, I joined a bigger professional services company. And at that point, I actually felt fish out of water. I was completely uncomfortable because that was my first exposure to corporate culture and how that works. It's very different. So I joined as a project manager in big company, and I miserably failed at it. I wasn't good at it at all. But it so happened that I was managing the project that was related to CRM, customer relationship management system, which is commonly used in most enterprises nowadays. So I was managing that project. I wasn't very good at it, didn't like the job role. So, but I like being a consultant. I like the product. I like to build something with that product. So I decided to give up the role of project manager, and I became a Microsoft CRM consultant, which is, you don't have to become a developer. You can deliver business value fairly quickly by taking a product that is off the shelf and building on top of that. So that's how I moved into then consultancy. Of course, then you start to build bigger programs. So I'd moved into bigger companies. I was getting comfortable with that culture. So then I moved to using that same system or product in bigger programs, bigger systems. And thus I became an architect. That was the next level. And from then onwards, I moved on to becoming an enterprise architect. So you're not just working with one system, you're working with a typical enterprise architecture would have about 10 systems, let's say, on an average, and then how all of them work in conjunction with each other and how do they together deliver business value. That became my focus. I was acquiring, the continuous learning was always there. I was learning on the job. I was learning from mentors. I was learning from others. I used to come home, study, and also give certification exams. So that was my life, continuous learning, studying at home, and also doing your job well. I think at this point, I had done a lot of programs, but then I started to feel that I'm doing the same. I always look for something new. I was working with systems that were largely what we call in computing terms as on-premises. So all the computer servers, etc., were all sitting in an enterprise's own data centers. By the time I think the cloud movement had picked up, and I was very keen to do something innovative, and I believe that I can do that with cloud architecture. So Salesforce, the company, were looking to recruit raw talent. I had no experience, no exposure to Salesforce, but they wanted to bring in people who had potential to learn Salesforce and grow. And that's where I moved to Salesforce, and I became a Salesforce architect. It was quite, it was a big jump. It was quite radically different to the traditional corporate enterprise atmosphere. I think Salesforce as a company is extremely innovative. As a company, the product itself is innovative, but as a company also, they had different ways of working, a lot of agility, a lot of openness, open communication, and collaboration, etc. So I learned different things in Salesforce, not just about the cloud architecture, which was, of course, the key. I continued to work with scale up the enterprise programs that I was leading technically. And by this time, I was doing programs that were size of what I'm doing today at Mars or comparable. and quite challenging, very complex, very tough. But I was gaining that experience. And then probably, but it was my life until here was just doing one program at a time. So I would work on a program, make it successful, then move to another program. Well, as I was always very ambitious. So now I wanted to do more than one program, get more exposure, get a broader perspective of what the enterprises are looking for, what the customers are looking for. So I left Salesforce and joined another company as Salesforce Chief Architect, so I could get a broader perspective of what is happening in the industry. I also had taken up a coaching diploma by this time, so I wanted to make sure that I'm mentoring and bringing up the next generation of architects. So that was the dual purpose why I left Salesforce and the life that I had, which was quite comfortable, but it was just being focused on myself rather than giving me that broad-based experience. So I did that for a while, but then again, I moved and then I moved to Mars. And the reason why I moved to Mars was, I'll talk about it when I talk about my work, that with Salesforce, it's innovative, it is still innovative, but there is a different movement that is happening in our industry, that's the technology industry. And I was keen on now stepping beyond Salesforce and looking at the newer technologies that are coming, which are beyond Salesforce. I gained a lot of experience working in commerce areas. So Salesforce is quite a generic system. CRM system can be used in any enterprise, any industry sector, for example, finance, manufacturing, and it fits in anywhere. But it so happened that I was, my experience was in commerce, retail commerce. So I wanted to focus on that area. So when the opportunity came up in Mars, I applied. They took me on because Mars is on a transformation path. So I joined Mars as the digital commerce chief architect early this year. I think I joined the day we started lockdown in the UK. So I'm never ever going to forget the day I joined Mars. So this has been a brief overview of my journey from Mumbai to Mars, how I built the career. I would say rather than me building the career, it more or less happened. I just had to think about, initially it was just about, I need to do this role well and I need to survive. And then once I settled down in the role, okay, what's next around me? Let me learn a little more. So that's how this career has been going. I didn't plan anything really. It was just happening. I was just taking one step ahead in the game. That's all I could do. And even today, I don't know what is going to happen next. I didn't plan to do anything that I'm doing today. But if there is an opportunity, then you just take it. So that's how my career has been built today. Talking about, I promised I will talk a little bit about the work that I'm doing. So I'm working in the area of digital commerce today. What do we understand by digital commerce? Some glitch. Okay. Stuck. Let me check what's happening. Okay. So what do we understand by digital commerce? There are three broad categories that we talk about in digital commerce. The first one that you see here, I'm talking about business to business digital commerce. Digital commerce, taking a step back, digital commerce is, you could say it is e-commerce that you transact with transactions between two parties are happening digitally, electronically. That's what broadly is the definition of digital commerce. So the broadest category is the business to business. So we at Mars, we produce confectionery, we produce pet food, we produce a lot of other brands. How would we bring them to the market? So we would probably typically deal with big businesses like Walmart's in the US or Big Bazaar in India, or we would have Tesco's in the UK. So those are the big businesses. So Mars would typically ship out their products to these big retailers who would then send it to their, sell that in their stores, or they would distribute it to other smaller retailers. So that's a primary and very traditional means of doing digital commerce. That's the business to business. And of course, this the data exchange happens electronically and the goods move physically, but the data exchange between the two businesses, Mars and let's say Big Bazaar, is happening electronically. So that's a very traditional means of doing business. Then there is a different variation, which is called B2B2C, as we call it, business to consumer. So what's the example of this is Mars would have some contractual agreement with something like Amazon, and Mars would sell to Amazon, and Amazon would then sell to consumers, or the consumers are buying Mars goods from Amazon. So Mars is actually selling to Amazon, and Amazon is selling to consumers, but then Mars sometimes has some control over how Amazon is transacting with the consumers. So that's why you see it's like a triangle. In the first case, Mars has no connection, no knowledge, no interaction with the consumer whatsoever, whereas in the next model, there could be an element of control or interaction with the consumer. So that's the second model. But the model that I'm currently focused on is called the direct to consumer, which is becoming hugely popular for retailers as well as brand organizations like Mars. And the pandemic has actually accelerated the need for having direct to consumer type of business model, where Mars is directly going to sell to consumers and engage with the consumers. So we do have our own websites, but we are trying to innovate and bring in more where we will directly interact with the consumers and sell to the consumers. But the direct to consumer paradigm is about sales. It's a revenue channel for companies like Mars and other similar organizations as well as retailers, but it's also about a lot about marketing. The purpose of direct to consumer is not just to sell, it's also to understand the consumer, understand what the consumer needs are, what does the consumer like, and then I'll talk about an example, but it's also about marketing. The moment you say you want to understand the consumer and do perhaps targeted interactions, then it falls into the area of marketing. Hence, the direct to consumer business proposition is not just about sales, it's also about marketing. Having said that, in the pandemic, we have seen that we as consumers have relied a lot on online purchases. So as a sales channel also, it is it's become quite essential now in the business model. So what's an example? I talked about direct to consumer, which is called DTC commerce. I'm going to explain via example, what does omni-channel mean? So a little bit of story. So this is me. I'm quite posh here. And I've got a dinner invitation for next weekend. And I've got a new dress. So I'm planning ahead. I've got this new dress and I want to buy a new pair of shoes to go with that dress. So I go on a website, I browse through, and I decide that I'm going to purchase a black pair of shoes. So I make my purchase. I don't want to collect, it's online. I don't want it to be delivered home. I tell them I opt for click and collect. So I'm going to collect 3 days later from store, a pickup kiosk. So that's what I've done. I've done that. And then Next day, I'm going to work, and then I realize, oh, I have several pairs of black shoes. Anyway, I don't need one more pair. I can wear one that I have got. So I call a customer service agent, Mohan, and tell him that I'm on my way to work. So I'm calling him from my phone, from my car or train, whatever, and tell him that, see, I've got this order. I don't need it. Can we please cancel it and refund my money? So Mohan says, okay, let me look through the system. He looks through the system and says, madam, I'm happy to cancel your order, but we have got this red pair of shoes. Would you like a red pair of shoes instead? And then, yeah, he has tempted me. So I told him I don't want black pair of shoes, which he says fine. But he says, okay, there is a red pair of shoes. And red is my favorite color. I don't know how he knows, but he knows. And red is my favorite color. And then I'm tempted. So I think, okay, I want red colored shoes. So I'm going to change the dress that I'm going to wear, but I want the red shoes. So I tell him, okay, fine, give me that red colored shoes. So he cancels my order for black colored shoes, but then he keeps the money by offering me red colored shoes because I say, yeah, I'll do an exchange rather than return. So that's what has happened. I've done an exchange rather than a return. Then a few days later, at the same time that I said I'll collect, I walk into a store, I go to a kiosk, and I collect my red colored shoes. So I'm happy. I've got my favorite colored shoes with me. Fantastic. But then I'm a quite a new generation consumer. So I go on to Twitter, I talk about my red color shoes, and then I also say, I wish now I had a red colored bag that was to go with the red color shoes and my dress. So that's what I'm tweeted. And what happens is within a couple of hours, somebody sends me an email, another brand organization. Sorry about that. And the whole cycle starts all over again. So now I've got pictures, glossy pictures of red colored bags. I know where to go and buy them. And the whole cycle starts. Now, in this game of this building this kind of system, which is direct to consumer, and that's omni-channel, because what's omni-channel is the consumer is engaging with the brand or the retailer through multiple channels, multiple touch points, through a mobile app, through a person, customer service agent, through a kiosk. They're listening on Twitter. They're sending me emails. And this is all about the consumer. So the consumer is at the center of the omni-channel D2C strategy. What is important is the consumer is the king or the queen. We at the brand or retailer organization need to understand what that consumer likes. So consumer insights are important. We want to make sure that we are keeping the consumer data safe. So security is important. Any security breach is extremely expensive to an organization and can cause brand more harm than benefit. So insights and security is important. We need to build systems that can scale because we are going to consumers is millions of interactions that are happening. They're happening at lightning speed. So the consumer is quite tech savvy. Responding at speed is extremely important because otherwise you will lose the consumer. He or she will go to another brand, another website, another retailer. So it's important that we are very responsive. Data becomes important. It's all about the data. So what is it that we are giving the consumer? What are we telling the consumer? and what data are we capturing? So what do we receive? What data do we capture of the consumer interaction based on which we can drive the insight? So these are the key principles that based on which we build the DTC architecture, or digital to direct to consumer type of digital commerce architecture. And underneath all this, those are the principles, and I've only shown few systems here, but there is a complicated architecture or systems that are interconnected. It's a mesh of systems that is being built, and that's driving the principles which are supporting the business outcomes that are focused on the consumer. Sometimes a system becomes a legacy system, it's too old, it's not able to cater to the principles that we have outlined. So then we have to bring in another system. And this is how the digital transformation continuously goes on. So it's an ongoing, it's ongoing initiative. So you do the initial transformation, but then it's continuous innovation, continuous transformation. You're not really stopping to doing one phase and then stopping. It's almost ongoing. Now, I said that I moved from a Salesforce-based role into the Mars role for a reason. Is I wanted to work with newer technologies that are coming in, and one of the new set of technologies that are currently in the market are called the MAC architecture. So the technologies that are based on MAC architecture. So MAC written here stands for microservices, A for API, that helps you to connect all the systems. So all the green lines that you can see that are connecting the ponds are APIs, as we call them, a cloud, which it's all cloud-based now, and it's headless. That means you don't have one gigantic system that we used to have. You take a lot of systems that don't have heads, you take a lot of bodies, join them with a single head. And that's the current thinking, to get the architecture principles that I have laid out, get them at speed, get the scaled, the security, etc. And we need some newer technologies now. The older technologies are not able to sustain the demand that is out there in the market. So that's what my current focus is, to work with MAC architecture principles to build newer digital, direct-to-consumer digital commerce systems. So that's been, I've given you a brief overview of the work that I am currently focused on. It is just a beginning, and there's a lot more to do in that area for me. Now, throughout this journey, there have been some of my greatest, and well, the natural word would be my greatest moments, but I would like to say what has been my greatest achievement over this career journey. My greatest achievement actually has been learning to communicate. How do you communicate? So you would assume that being in computing, it's a technical skill. As long as I know how to do coding and programming, I don't need to communicate. I don't need to talk to people. My work needs to speak for itself, so on and so forth. But that is so not true, because if I don't speak about my work, if I can't communicate, then nobody's going to understand. So I need to be able to communicate and tell what I'm doing to others so they can understand and they can help me grow. So learning to communicate has been my biggest achievement, I think. Few years ago, when I said that I moved from small to medium companies to a big company, one of the managers told me there, I was a technical person, so I wanted to just do technical stuff. And he said, technical stuff, you can go to the market and get people. You pay money, you will find resources, developers, etc. to do it. But the key is to understand the business processes, what the businesses need. So driving business outcomes is important, and that money cannot buy. You have to learn. You have to work with the businesses. So that was one of the most important advices that I had ever received. And since then, I'm still a technical person. I love being technical, but I've focused on learning business processes in different industries, understanding what the business leaders need. And that's how I built my communication skills. And today I advocate to any new professionals in my area that learn to communicate. If you don't communicate, you have to communicate with technical teams. You also have to communicate with business leaders and business teams. So learning to communicate is important to bridge the gap between technical and business communities. My greatest value, and this is something which I had built upon it during my educational years itself, is integrity. So this has been my North Star throughout my journey. Your values get compromised or get challenged a number of times, and you need some kind of anchor to guide in your decision making and whether you're doing the right thing or not. And that value for me has been integrity. Anytime I get challenged, and it happens even today, believe me, every time I look into myself and I just make decisions based on what is the right thing to do. So that integrity has been my North Star, and it still is. So it's important, I think, for everyone to have core set of values and let those values guide you. Those values may change as you go through your life and career, but there has to be some values that you're driving, that drives your decision making. My greatest challenge, and I think this I briefly said to Madam Anuradha before starting the speech, is been with dealing with biases. Now, biases could be of any type. It could be natural to assume that just because I'm an Indian, I came to UK, so there's racial bias. That's not true. The biases could be anything. I was often, the biggest bias I found that I struggled with was being a woman. Being a woman in technical role, it's very rare in our industry. It's 2 to 5%, even less than that. That's the percentage. So fighting, I struggled a lot with biases, and there was always this conflict with my value because I was steadfast with my value, and then I had to deal with the biases. So I was not able to give up my values, but I had to face the biases. So I think it took me a long time to come to grips with the biases and how to deal with them, because I would react. It could become an emotionally downhill slide sometimes. It was that bad. So, and I couldn't change my circumstances. That's how the industry was, or even to some extent is. So I could not change the circumstances. I could not change other people. So finally, I just changed myself and learned to deal with the biases. First thing I did was to take out my own biases. We think that others are biased. We also have our own biases. So it's important to deal with, acknowledge, understand your own biases, get rid of them, and actually then it helps you to cope with others' biases. It gives you the strength and the objectivity to cope with how others are treating you. But first you have to learn how to treat others. Once you sort that out, then it helps you to cope with how others treat you. So I think that has been my biggest challenge, to deal with my own biases as well as others' biases. What has been my biggest motivation? Initial part of the career, of course, we needed money. We had moved from India to UK. The money that we saved in India didn't go very long in the UK, so I had to work to earn money to support my family. But I also I was ambitious and I wanted to move forward. So those were two factors which were motivating me. A few years ago, I lost my mojo. I didn't have that motivation anymore. Financially, we were okay, and I had lost my ambition. I saw no point in trying to move forward. So why should I work? I just decided I'll quit the industry. I can find something else to keep myself engaged. I don't want to do this job anymore. I don't want to be in the industry anymore. And at that point, a friend of mine said, look, Anjali, she's female and she was my colleague then. She's still my friend. And she said, look, Anjali, we need people like you. We need, for two reasons. We need you because you're a good architect, so industry needs good skills. So you need to be there and help us professionally. But she also said that women like you can't give up. You have to guide the younger generation that is coming in. And that's where she told me, you can't give up. You have to carry on, not for yourself, but for others. I think that gave me a new motivation. And at that point, I decided that I will work for myself. I still have ambitions. I still want to progress myself. But there is that motivation now to make sure that the younger generation, especially women, have I wouldn't call myself a role model, but they have a hope that they can make it. So that's why my motivation now has become, you can do and she can do. So I trend, when I'm dealing professionally, I tend not to differentiate between men and women, because I know sometimes even men struggle with biases or different issues. So that's why I think you can do and she can do. That's become my new motivation, along with my own personal, whatever progress I want to make in my professional life. Last but not least, what's been my greatest asset and strength? And that's been my unconditional, unwavering support from my family and friends. Without their support, without the strength that they have given me all these years, I couldn't have done any of this. So I don't usually say thank you to them, but let me take this opportunity to say thank you to my family as well as friends who believed in me more than I have ever believed in myself. And I know they will still be there for me. So thank you to them. I think this is the story of my journey from Mumbai to Mars. It has been a remarkable and rewarding journey, no complaints. Professionally, personally, and intellectually, I have benefited. And I know it is not over yet. I have a lot more work to do. And I'm curious to see where it will take me next. Being here today has made me realize how grateful I am to the GYAN, or the knowledge that I received here. During my doctorate work, as I said, we had very little resources. So I had to be self-reliant, I had to be resilient. And I learned never to give up and never to give in. So those lessons that I learned during my doctorate years at UDP have stood me in good stead until today, and they will be with me forever. Those learnings set me up for success. And I'm sure the same learnings that you are receiving will also set you up for success. I hope sharing my career journey with you will give you an insight into how you can build your own destiny. So good luck and God bless. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Anjali. You chose a different path, and that made all the difference in your life. So it's really a different kind of lecture we got to hear today. And I think for the students particularly, it will be very motivating to see how, the amazingly diverse fields our alumni have been successful at. And I hope it gives them hope that they can do so many things in life, also physics and many other things. So
Yes.
Thank you so much. So we'll open the session for question, answer, and discussions. So if anybody has any questions, you can unmute yourself and speak. You can raise your hand. We can call you one by one, and you can ask your question.
Yeah, so thank you, Dr. Anjali. It was a really very, very inspiring story of your journey. And I'm so glad that you talked about values like integrity and getting rid of your own biases. I mean, your speech was full of very, very important messages. And you have really played the role of elder brother, sister to the students. And I hope they get the message. I just wanted to ask, it has been, you have made a lot of changes at various stages. So was there some time when you were totally out of, touch with any kind of professional thing? I mean, how did you make this switch from, uh, um, just when did you decide that you don't, exactly when did you decide that you don't want to do teaching and research and you would like to go for IT kind of thing? Or was it a slow transition?
Yeah, I think that thinking had started in India itself when I was in Mumbai. So after my PhD, I was keen in working, doing research. Teaching, full-time teaching wasn't my calling. I wanted to be creative, and I thought teaching didn't give me the full opportunity for the same. But those years, the jobs in research were very few. And experimental research always required funding, which was difficult to come by. So I was struggling with research. Lack of opportunities and a lack of funding means that I could not have carried on with the experimental research. And that's why, but I had got exposure to scientific computing at that point as part of the research that I was doing. And I think at that point, I made the decision that I'll have better opportunities in computing compared to research. So after that, it was just a matter of finding the opportunities and building your career. So once I had decided that's what I want, then I went after it.
Also, one thought came to my mind while listening to you, that in this pandemic, most of the businesses and professions are suffering, but e-commerce must be thriving, isn't it?
Yes, I've been busier than ever.
So are there, increase in the profits and things, and have you seen it from the close distance? There's a boom in the, company profit or something like that.
Yes, because it depends on the type of commodity that we have to offer, because Mars per se is in food business, pet care as well as human food, and food is an essential commodity. So yes, the business has been booming. There is a huge demand from our businesses to have the e-commerce accelerated and built far more quickly than before the pandemic.
And
but there are some businesses, but some of the businesses are also going into administration, like, the fashion clothing and so on. So,
yeah. So does that also open up opportunities for employment, more opportunities for employment?
I would not say those, some of the companies who want to retain staff, they will reskill them to do something else. But the new job opportunities, our market is still not that big. It's divert your resources towards doing something else. That's the principle on which the businesses are working, rather than hire new people.
Okay.
Dr. Anjali, I just wanted to ask that if students want to take up a career in your field, so how do they go about that? If you could say something about that.
I think you need two things. You need knowledge and you need experience. So you have to get the knowledge. Certifications help. I don't have a degree in computer science, but I did do a lot of certifications along the way. So having the knowledge and certification helps. The biggest challenge, at least this is how it is in UK, experience matters a lot. Just knowledge is not enough. It's the biggest challenge is to find the experience. And for that experience, then you can do projects. Sometimes you can do voluntary projects where you're using your knowledge, but nobody's paying you anything, but you're gaining the experience, so you can put it on your CV. So I think you get the knowledge, get some certificates, get some experience, and all that you're doing in parallel to whatever job you need to do to earn your livelihood. And then you can switch the career. I can see Professor
Anjali, it's nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
Yeah, so that's what we are. I was just thinking, like, just as people are asking, I mean, people are also asking what is your, so I would just like to ask, like, you know, especially in the current scenario, since trust is more on all this yeah, digital commerce, I think we, as pure doing our physics, we are not looked on much, but what I would also feel is after listening, I can see that there is, we would be able to understand if we get some kind of, you know, exposure or something.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
do you think you would be in a position to guide students? Because we are now, the UGC tells us come up with some short-term courses, you know, skill development and so on. So I have been trying to understand, because any of these you have to always quote the, no, this is the price, the cost, and all those things. So in that sense, do you think, how do you think you guide us?
Yeah, I'll be happy to support. Maybe we can connect via Dr. Anuradha or directly. Dr. Anuradha has my contact number and email ID. So happy to help out. No problem. It'll be my pleasure. I could see Professor Rangawala somewhere. Hello, sir. He said hello.
And make myself visible. Hi, hello.
Oh, my favorite professor. I missed you. I think Dr. Anuradha has been telling me Professor Rangwala will join in. So I joined in 10 minutes early to see you.
Unfortunately,
I think
joined
he
a
was
little
late today. Today he was late.
Yeah, I know. But I'm glad I saw him. I still respect him. And he's a friend. He's my friend. He was my friend then, and he's my friend today. So,
He's everybody's friend.
Thank you, Anjali. Yeah. So nice to see you and hear you after a long time.
After a long time.
Yes, and you are as assertive as before.
Okay, nothing has changed.
Yeah. You always had that, you know, that confidence and distinct capacity to fight. I know.
Yep. Yes.
Yeah.
And
good. Great. So nice to see you.
Thank you, sir. I remember we used to have those debates on theoretical physics versus experimental physics. You always thought theoretical physics is better. I think I've proved today that experimental physics is as good as theoretical physics when it comes to building science.
Yeah, the war still continues.
Yes, it continues. It used to be there. I remember.
There is no war. There is no war. There is no war. Yeah, I think.
No, just kidding, sir. As usual, we are
I know.
inspired by your.
Yeah, it's nice to see you, sir, very much.
Right. Nice to see you and hear you and see that you're still a fighter. That I know. I knew you were always.
Yes, I said UDP taught me never to give in, never to give up. And I do come close sometimes to give in and give up, but I don't. I carry on. So I guess those foundational lessons have been.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah, thank you. I saw somebody else, Ratna, also said hello. Hi, Ratna. Okay, she messaged me, I saw, but she's probably dropped out.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay.
So do we have any more comments or questions? So if we don't have any more comments and questions, I think it's time for me to do the pleasant duty of proposing the vote of thanks. I would, of course, first like to thank the university authorities, the Vice Chancellor, our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Pro Vice Chancellor, Dean of Sciences, for supporting us in this endeavor of hosting the GYAN-Series, UCC, our computer department, for providing us all these facilities. Of course, the GYAN team, which is working behind the scenes to make this possible. our head of the department, Professor Anuradha Mishra, all our faculty members, all the alumni who have joined us today, and of course, the speaker. It was wonderful to hear from you, Dr. Anjali. Particularly, one thing I forgot to mention at that time, that you told about the biases, about fighting the biases, particularly as women faculties. That was very inspiring to hear from you, and I'm sure for all the female students also. So thank you very much for giving us your time, and we look forward, as Professor Radha Srinivasan mentioned, to keep the association and gain from what you have learned, your expertise. If our students can connect with you, that would be wonderful. So thank you very much, and thank you everyone for joining us today, and hope to see you again for the next session of